Oh, it's time for the Thursday edition. Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Paul Kaharski in this week for Robbie Stanley. Nick Keyser producing. Nick Keyser's been internless 2 straight days. We're broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. PK, how's it going?
Good morning, Nashville. Good morning, Joseph. Good morning, Nicholas. Good to be here.
Nick, what do you have to say for yourself?
I like hearing my full name sometimes. There you go.
You like that?
Yeah.
We could call you Nicholas from now on. It reminds me of, for whatever reason, this will be a you and me joke, but the kid with the bowl haircut from 8 is Enough. Because whenever I heard the word Nicholas, I think of that kid. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Nicholas. Little
about.
Nicholas on 8 is Enough.
Yeah.
There's no way that Nicholas here understands.
No,
what I'm
no
talking
way.
Such a wholesome program.
about. Yeah. Kind of a weird one.
When did that even come out?
Oh, it was. I mean, it was big
70s,
in the late
early
70s. It probably lasted until the very early 80s. Yes. But yeah, look up Nicholas 8 is Enough. I mean, if you could get that hair, you know, like that is a special
What was the
bowl hair.
actor's
My little
name
brother
that was
had
the
a pretty
dad?
sweet bowl haircut.
Was the dad's name Nicholas Van Patten?
Dick Van Patten. Right?
Dick Van Patten.
So not Dickolas, probably. Dick.
Okay, here we go. We'll get it out of your system in the 6 o'clock hour.
Ooh,
That's your pledge.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have said it in the 7 o'clock hour. It's just a weird thing to say.
Nick Van Patten. Now I'm thinking of Nick Van Exel as I watch the LA Lakers and overweight. I feel like I feel like Luka Doncic gained 10 pounds since the trade. I mean,
there's good food in LA.
Yeah, it's a good food town. He might be in trouble. There's a lot of good barbecue in Dallas. Though,
Does your boy Dalton Connect have to go to Charlotte yet? Do we know?
Well, no, he's back with the Lakers. You haven't heard this?
No, yeah, I got rescinded.
Right.
Yeah, because they failed the physical.
Right. So now he's sitting there on the bench, and I actually saw yesterday someone showed like a shot of him looking like.
Why were they sending him to Charlotte?
Well, they traded him to Charlotte to get Mark Williams. They need a big, and that would have been. I mean, I don't like giving up Connect, but it would have been a good big for Luka. I mean, he's just a lob, rim runner, rim protector guy. But yeah, failed the physical, I guess, right?
Connected.
No. Connected? No. Williams did. Yeah. So Connect goes back to the Lakers. Like, hey guys. Oh, hey Dalton. Great to see you back again. You know, so they had a picture of him on the bench looking like angry. But I'm like, when it comes down to it, you're getting paid millions to play basketball. You'll be all right, man. Like you're back in LA. And actually, I mean, I like Dalton as part of that core, moving
But he's
forward.
probably on the block for a big.
Well, it could be. Possibly. They did
But
sign someone else.
The deadline's over.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they signed somebody else. And who knows? I mean, he's a talented player. I think that he could work with them. But anyway, we've got today, of course, this is Charles Robinson Day. So we will have him later. We're going to talk about Charles Robinson. We're also going to get into another Robinson in the 7 o'clock hour, and a big question that I have for Titans fans as it relates to the potential for a Mike Vrabel and a John Robinson tenure at 2 different AFC teams as we move forward. So we will get to that, but we're going to continue right now, PK, with the cliffhanger that you left us with yesterday. So
it's a terrific cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's a good and I don't have an answer. So if you do, that's great. But I have not found a situation where I can definitively say, like at the time of drafting the number 1 overall pick quarterback, the NFL city in question was angry because they wanted a non-quarterback instead. So if you've got an example of that, I'm here for it.
I do not. I did some investigation, a part of which landed me I've got a phone conversation scheduled with Mel Kiper. It's not going to help this conversation because it's this afternoon.
You can tell us tomorrow.
Yeah, I could tell you tomorrow.
Tell us tomorrow what he says.
But I talked to Gary Myers, the longtime NFL columnist who wrote for a long time for the New York Daily News and the Dallas Morning News and has written several books. And I could just read you the first paragraph of what he wrote me back. Going back to the merger, I can't remember a fan base objecting to a quarterback with the first pick, especially when they didn't have a franchise quarterback. I don't blame the Titans fans in this scenario, though, because Ward and Sanders would be the 7th and 8th quarterbacks taken if grouped with the 2024 class. But do they really want another year of Will Levis? So he's not factoring in potential free agent help here.
Right.
But it really could be an unprecedented situation here. Now,
It's hard
I
to
don't know that people are
believe.
going to boo it, but they might boo it.
Well, first of all, yeah. Now this is where you get into.
But there's
social media going to tell you that, because there are some Titans fans who are up in arms that we're even talking about people other than quarterback.
yes,
There are some. So it's
Some.
not going to be. Yeah,
Some.
it won't. Yeah, some. Are they the loud minority on social media? I don't know.
Well, I think it's telling that the active fans, not just Twitter active fans, but the fans that really dive into the draft and are on the draft machines and working out the trades and all of that. That's an important segment of your fan base. And those are the people who are on Twitter and stuff. So Twitter is not real life, we're fond of saying, and that's true. But it is a representative of an important element of your fan base. Not that the Titans need to cater to that important element of the fan base.
No.
But that is a loud element of your fan base. Now, I think the thing that could move this some is if we get indications from now to the draft that they truly like Cam Ward, and that when we hear them talk more about Cam Ward at the combine and, out of the pro day and whatever at the owners meeting, and if we see what they do or do not do in free agency, that it becomes more evident that maybe they're going that direction, that people, I don't want to say talk themselves into, soften on the idea that this could be their guy, that maybe it changes. But if the draft was next week and the Titans got stuck at number 1 and couldn't trade down, which seems to be the universal preference. It was like, 68% when I ran that poll last week of a trade down of some level. I think people would be a good share of Titans fans would not like it. And that's an odd situation for a quarterback needy team to have the number 1 pick, to take the best quarterback, and for the fan base to be like, damn, I wish they took the pass rush.
Okay. Ready for the whole list? I'm going to give you the whole list. It's not that long, actually. Of number 1 overall quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that went with the number 1 overall pick. 1944, Angelo Bertelli from Notre Dame to the Boston Yanks.
Oh, people didn't like that at all.
But then
it's a confusing time with the Boston Yanks.
And World War II raging. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. It's just the Boston Yanks existing. And then in 46, the Boston Yanks again went with Frank Dankowicz, another Notre Dame quarterback, number 1 overall. The Boston Yanks took Notre Dame quarterbacks number 1 overall in 2 out of 3 drafts. That's amazing.
The first guy must have not really gotten it
Angelo
done.
Bertelli did not do very well. Then you got Bill Wade from Vanderbilt to the Rams. Bobby Garrett from Stanford to the Browns. George Shaw we're in the 50s. George Shaw from Oregon to the Colts. King Hill from Rice to the Cardinals. Randy Duncan from Iowa to the Packers. Terry Baker from Oregon State to the Rams. Then we get to Terry Bradshaw. I've actually looked at the 1970 draft. Like, did they blow it? Was there? I mean, I don't even really know most of them. Mike Phipps went 3rd, by the way. So Phipps from Purdue. Terry Bradshaw. Then you have Plunkett in 71 to the Pats. Steve Bartkowski. Were Falcons fans up in arms? I mean, in 75 when they took him out of Cal, I don't know. He was an okay quarterback. John Elway. Everyone was thrilled. Obviously, Colts fans may have been upset because they knew he wouldn't want to play for him. He was going to do baseball. But then you got Vinny Testaverde to the Bucs. I mean, everybody thought he was going to be amazing, right? Apparently, he was colorblind. Like I said, Jeff George is an interesting one. What's that?
I'm just the colorblind crack makes me think of why did the Bills change the color of their helmets? They had somebody that had color blindness issues, which is why they changed their helmet color.
Like Jim Kelly era? Joe Ferguson era?
Maybe it was Joe Ferguson.
Joe Ferguson? Okay. I didn't know that. So then you get into Jeff George. I did mention that one yesterday. Like, were Colts fans thrilled in 1990 about Jeff George coming out of Illinois?
There are situations like Jamarcus Russell. People didn't like Jamarcus Russell, but the Raiders needed a quarterback.
Right.
They weren't upset that they were going to draft a quarterback. They were upset that it was Jamarcus Russell.
Were they? I mean, hey, again, I still give Charles. We have Charles on later. I still give him crap for like the column he wrote in Yahoo about how amazing Jamarcus Russell was going to be. I mean, like the combine was a total like, oh my God, this guy. Okay, so let's see. Then Bledsoe in 93, Washington State to the Pats. Peyton Manning to the Colts. Tim Couch, my goodness. I mean, Browns fans, I think, were excited, but, that's one of the all-timers. Michael Vick to the Falcons. David Carr to the Texans. Carson Palmer to the Bengals. Eli Manning. That's another didn't want to play for the team. Alex Smith to the Niners in 05. Then Jamarcus. Matthew Stafford. Lions fans were thrilled about that. Sam Bradford to the Rams. Cam Newton. Andrew Luck. Jameis Winston. Jared Goff. Baker Mayfield. Kyler Murray. Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young, and, of course, Caleb Williams. I don't know. I mean, if there's somebody out there, fan of a team, that remembers, even a decent amount of a fan base being like, no, it should have been this receiver.
But keep in mind, we're
end.
not talking about the specific quarterback. We're talking about the position, right? And it's just hard to imagine.
Like wanting to take something other than a quarterback.
Of you not wanting the quarterback, which I think puts Borgonzi and Brinker and the whole crew here in a pretty advantageous position. And I'm not real big on the sophistication of this fan base overall in a lot of circumstances. I mean, they're like, trade Treylon Burks for a third rounder, But in this instance, it seems they're being very reasonable, where they're saying, hey, recognize that the quarterbacks aren't that good and don't force it. Are they doing that in Cleveland and New York? I don't think so. I think they're saying fix quarterback. Yeah. You got to take the swing at quarterback. Swing and swing and swing and swing.
Which, by the way, when you talk about the indications, I mean, the Titans are going to obviously show their hand if they sign someone or don't, right? It's not impossible for them to not sign a significant quarterback and not draft a quarterback.
I think it is.
But boy,
I mean, you got to sign somebody.
It's a hard one to understand. If so,
you got one quarterback under contract.
Yeah, so they're probably going to. So, but the idea of, but you could also flip it around and say, are they absolutely not drafting a quarterback? Point being, it's not if people have the idea that they like them, that's probably, even if they really don't, that's the idea, right? That's what you want out there.
And I mean, they could leave themselves in position going into the draft. And I think you and I don't like this scenario. I don't know about this slice of the fan base that we're talking about, where maybe they are thinking that they like somebody outside of Ward and Sanders. I don't like that scenario very much.
See if they can get them in the second type thing.
Yeah. Well, where they like a Dart or a McCord or somebody for some reason.
Tyler Shugg, like I said, Nick Baumgartner yesterday, his mock draft has him going as the top pick of the second round and as the third quarterback. So there's another name that's apparently rising. All right, we'll continue this when we come back. Join us on the game phone or text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Paul Karski, huge Bruce Springsteen fan. This is, I'm sure, your favorite song of all time by Bruce Springsteen, right? You probably play this one all the time.
Not my favorite of all time, but it's a fine song.
You're not a hater. See, there's some Springsteen fans who are big haters of Dancing in the Dark and kind of that whole album.
Oh,
you know?
they're anti-establishment.
Yeah, you're cool. You're cool with little Glory Days.
I don't know.
Little Glory Days, little my
Hating
hometown.
Born in the USA is kind of crazy.
Well, Born in the USA is like people completely misunderstand the point of the song.
No, but the album,
including politicians.
The album was right at the peak of my, fully forming into a fan. It's my high school first concert, 84.
Yeah. You had a sweet comb in like your jeans, like the big plastic
No.
comb, and feathered hair.
No. But I mean, I went to the Meadowlands. I took a bus into New York City and a bus from New York City to Meadowlands. And then my dad picked us up.
That's pretty cool.
It's a great night.
That's pretty cool. Speaking of haircuts, Eric said he was on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com, says he was born in 75 and talking about the Nicholas haircut. My parents gave me that damn haircut as a little kid. Eric from Buffalo. Sorry, Eric.
I mean,
it was popular.
Like
then.
he popularized the haircut. Bowl haircuts were, for some reason, our parents were idiots and gave us those.
No, my little brother absolutely had that haircut for sure. I never really did, but I had.
But did
more
your
of
parents
like
look at TV and say, "Oh, we want the Nicholas"?
I don't know. It's a good question.
It existed well before Nicholas.
It probably did, but I bet you Nicholas helped popularize it. I bet you
give
he
us
did.
that.
Good job, Nicholas.
It seems just like such a lazy thing. There's no thought in that haircut.
Yeah,
It's like I don't have any time. Just do that.
Just right. I don't know. It's a good topic.
Weak.
We'll delve more into that. But continuing on the number one pick and the idea that if the Titans go quarterback, that Titans fans will be upset. First of all, you talk about Twitter. I got people on Twitter or X screaming at me when you tweeted that thing yesterday out about how I prefer Hunter over Carter, which is still debatable, but people screaming at me that Hunter is the fourth best cornerback in this draft.
Somebody else said, "Who is he better than on the current roster?"
I mean, yeah, this is the type of
corner.
And I'm like, okay, these conversations have gotten so dumb. I'm just going to ignore you. But what, guys? Look, please. I don't know where that comes from, but again, if he's not listed as a number one player just because he could play both sides. I mean, I guess I'll have to look at. I know that Dane Brugler has him number one as the number one player on his board. So no. Will Johnson, Michigan, very good. I would not hesitate to take him in the first round. And the Michigan corners right now are coming out are very good. But no, Travis Hunter has a higher ceiling than that. Travis Hunter has the highest ceiling at corner in this draft, and I don't think it's close.
I agree with you. I think he's very, very good, potentially, awesome.
So Indy Ben says this. Indy Ben weighing in. Indy Ben, you never answer my question of how you're feeling about the Anthony Richardson era.
He just hides.
But,
we had an indie guy like that back in my full-time radio days. Used to call in and lecture us on how the Colts were superior to the Titans, and then when the Colts got bad, he disappeared.
Well, Indy Ben,
I think it's an Indy fan thing.
I like it when Indy Ben contributes. He says, I don't think it's because Titans fans are this sophisticated group. I think it's more that people like Stilly are pounding the table. This draft sucks at QB. So he, among others, are persuading fans to want to trade down.
Don't be persuaded
rather
by
than going
him.
QB, even when you're desperate for one. I still think it's very rare for a QB desperate team to pass up on the chance to take a potential franchise QB. So I wouldn't just assume they'll pass on Ward or Sanders at one. I'm not assuming it either. Well, how about that? Let's flip it around. Can you think of a situation where a team did that? Like we're talking about the team taking the quarterback and people being upset about it. Can you think of a situation where a team was quarterback desperate, was at the top of the draft, and did not take a quarterback? I mean, who was at the top of the draft in 22?
Quarterback-wise?
No. What team was at the top of the draft in 22? Because obviously that's the year that – or I'm sorry, 23, right? Was it 23? No, it was 22. The terrible QB year was 22, right? When Pickett's the only guy who goes in the first round and he goes 17th.
Yeah.
There would be an example, but
that's 22.
Yeah.
22, Jacksonville took Walker. Detroit took Hutchinson.
So there you go. So Jacksonville had already taken Lawrence the year before.
Houston
So.
took Stingley. Houston didn't have a quarterback yet. Jets took Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, so Houston would be there. There's an example. I mean, it's not number one, but it's an example of a team that absolutely had to have a quarterback, was in the wake of all the crap with Deshaun Watson.
And two cornerbacks
and
went 3 and
wisely
4.
said, no, thank you. That's another thing someone tweeted. They took Stingley third.
Cornerback third, yeah.
Someone
third
else,
and fourth.
these anti-Hunter people are also tweeting at me like, a cornerback's never gone number one overall. That may be true. I don't know. But it was like, I don't even think a cornerback's ever gone in the top 5. Like, yes, you're absolutely out of your mind on that. Many cornerbacks have gone in the top 5 of the NFL draft. There's absolutely no question about it. But that's a good example of a team.
Yeah, Pickett lasted all the way till 20.
Oh, it was a 20. Okay. And he was the only one. And Malik Willis, who, again, just because of the presumption that if there's a quarterback, whoever the top quarterbacks are, teams are going to take the top quarterbacks. There were people the day of the draft talking about Malik Willis as like the 2nd or 3rd overall.
And if I'm reading this right, Desmond Ridder was 2nd, 3rd round, 74th.
Yeah, and there were people talking about him certainly in the 1st round. Yeah, in fact, there was a mock draft.
And Malik Willis 3rd, 86th. That is an extraordinary draft.
There was a mock draft.
Matt Corral, 94th.
From someone legitimate who had the Texans taking Malik Willis 3rd overall pick. They could have. If they would have done it, the league would have been, some people would have been like, yeah, I don't know if he's that good or that's bad QB draft, but okay, I get it. I understand. Yeah, he would have busted badly. But that's, so good for them for being smart and then waiting a year and getting their guy, and whatever happened with the Titans that night too, by the way.
Yeah, they're this draft is really, it's worth, I'm going to write about it. It's obviously a huge outlier in terms of how things work, and no good quarterbacks came out. Do you know Chris Oladokin?
No.
7th round pick, 241. Pittsburgh took a 2nd quarterback that year.
Is that right? Out of where?
From South Dakota State.
Okay.
Skylar Thompson.
Yeah,
that year
I
as
remember
well.
Skylar Thompson. Yeah.
I mean, there's not a good Brock Purdy was the last pick of that draft. He's the only good quarterback in the bunch.
Yeah.
That's just a totally inside-out draft.
And it's bizarre. And I've heard some people try to compare this one to that. This is not that. This is not the top. This is not great. But this is not that. I think Cam Ward's going to go number 1 overall. I do. I think he's going to go number 1 overall.
I
don't know. I mean, that I'm not sure on, but I
think to the Giants.
You think to the Giants?
That would be my guess at this point. Now, I think you're taking what the Giants ultimately give you. What can Borgonzi do to massage that trade?
So, okay. So what works? What works from them? I mean, obviously we're just talking picks, right? We're not talking any sort of current player on the Giants roster, probably, right?
Yeah. No, it's
what's your little trade thing? Can't
you
punch that into your little trade thing?
It'll take me a second to do it.
Yeah. I mean, if the Titans, if it is the Giants, by the way, previously Ryan Cowden, but not anymore.
I mean, right now the offer I get is 3, 34, 65, 104, and they're 2nd next year.
That's not bad.
3, 34, 65. So that's 2 additional picks in the top 100. Next year's in the top 100, and 104 just outside of the top 100.
Yeah, I mean, then, you do that, now you can get, you think, well, look, you're going to get.
I mean, you're back in the 3rd round, plus you've got now 34 and 35 back-to-back.
So you can go edge, receiver, or tackle, 2 of those 3, after going Abdul Carter or Hunter at 3. You can definitely get one of them at 3. I mean, that's probably the ideal scenario, right?
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario. All right, we'll continue with this when we come back. Robby Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight for coverage of the Duel at Daytona. Coverage will begin at 5 with the race starting at 6 p.m. Presented by Green Trees ADN, the new Cumberland.com. Green Trees and the new Cumberland.com. Race broadcast is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 94.9thefan.com. Welcome back in. Robby Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank, muscle, small bank, hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/getitall. So someone brought up a point on the text line, or no, maybe on Twitter, about Eagles fans. But first of all,
special category.
Well, yeah, they boo everything. So in 99, the Eagles, I do remember Donovan McNabb being booed. It's funny because, so that 99 draft, one, Tim Couch, Browns fans, yes, yeah. Eagles fans booed Donovan McNabb, the one great QB in that draft. And then Bengals fans get to be excited about Keely Smith. That draft also saw Minnesota take Dante Culpepper at 11 and Chicago take Cade McNown at 12. All the Bears and QB drafting. It's just been a glorious run.
Yeah. So the Eagles hit there.
So the Eagles hit. They're the only team that hit. They
5.
booed. But were they booing, were they booing because they didn't want a quarterback or because they wanted, I don't know, Keely Smith? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They just
Or are they booing because they're going to boo anybody?
Yeah, that may be. Yeah. So but they probably weren't what we're talking about, which is booing the idea of a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
In exchange for, let me see, who's the top position, who's the best non-QB? Okay, so the best non-QB, the 4th pick went Edgerrin James, pretty freaking good. Then you got Ricky Williams. Then you got Torrey Holt. Then you got Champ Bailey. Well, that's a pretty good draft when it comes down to hitting on position players. And then you get to, then you get to David Boston. But no, that's a pretty good run, though, at the top of that draft.
Yeah.
Edgerrin, Ricky Williams, Torrey Holt, Champ Bailey. Wow. So, I don't know. Maybe they wanted one of the running backs instead. But, yeah, no one has really – usually with stuff like this, like our text line is – we got people with some
examples.
Been on this earth for some years and, fans of different teams, things like that, and no one is coming with anything. Ed says, what's more upsetting, drafting the QB or trading back? Drafting really well, but one of the two QBs turns out to be really good. Yeah, I've been saying that. I'm not excited about these quarterbacks. I wouldn't take him there. But, yeah, you tell me in a few years we're talking about, oh, my God, Cam Ward, what an absolute steal for the Giants. He's the toast of the NFC East. Yeah, stuff like that happens too.
Oh, I think if that happens, that's bad.
Well, sure.
I mean, unless they find an answer elsewhere, and then
in the meantime,
in the long range, they can say, well, we missed on Cam Ward, but we hit on somebody next year or whatever. But if you miss on a quarterback and your quarterback list, that's the biggest thing in the NFL. And so you're going to pay a price in terms of fan perception and all of that. But you can't draft nervous like that by any means.
I mean, look, Cam Ward turning out to be a great player. Is that any crazier than Brock Purdy being the 49ers quarterback of choice while they completely discard Trey Lance?
No, but you got to factor in the Trey Lance thing there. I mean, they gave up the house to go get a guy they thought was a sure thing, and abiding by your thing, the odds of the top guy panning out, not just the top guy, the top guys are low.
I mean, Cam Ward being great, is it any crazier than, look, even like Lamar Jackson being what he has become. They took him at the end of the first round. There are a lot of people saying he's not an NFL quarterback. Those people look like idiots. They looked like idiots at the time, but still. Or Jalen Hurts now being a Super Bowl champion as a second-round pick, kind of like, okay, we'll take a flyer on this guy.
Right. But, I mean, you're talking against your own general theory, which is most of these guys wind up sucking.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even Trevor Lawrence, who was absolutely universally viewed as a generational guy,
right,
is not good.
No, the math says absolutely you don't do it. I mean, especially, well, again, absolutely you don't do it. If your evaluation is
try it. The general thinking is you got to take the swing.
And the math says, again, 1 in 5 work out decently well. Yes, just like the name Dickless. Not Nicholas.
That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Oh, why are you giving me a YouTube chat, Simon? I need to talk about the YouTube chat, or is somebody on the YouTube chat screaming at us?
You just can't forget about him.
I'm not forgetting about the. You're right. You're right. I'm not forgetting
Okay.
about the
He's
YouTube.
not forgetting about it. He
I'll-
just hasn't said anything about him or commented.
Takes about an
in
hour
there.
to get to it, though.
Well, I'll get to the YouTube chat. All right.
Has
I
that
will
been
do
tweeted
that.
out? I'll get in there too. if it's
I
been
did
tweeted
I
out.
did tweet out.
Yes.
I did tweet out the YouTube chat. So, but
You didn't tweet it out.
I
Who
didn't?
tweeted it out?
Yes,
I
I
did.
did. Well, I retweeted it.
Reposted it.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. It's now reposted. Is that right? Because on X it can't be retweeted. Why am I still on X? I gotta get off X, man. You
There's
gonna
no
get
getting
X?
off X.
No.
Well, I mean, there is for somebody like you, but all you do is like compile a bracket list, and you don't really have writing to advertise. So,
okay.
yeah,
Well,
you
I
could
write
get
quite a
off
bit
X.
actually. I'm so, please mute your computer because
Yeah,
now I can
okay.
hear you saying
Measuring cheek size.
I can hear you saying something dumb for a second time, like seconds later. We've already got it the first time. No, I don't know. It's just an absolute bleep show of a.
Is there a way? Here's a question, and I don't want to get political about it,
Okay.
but Elon's all over my Twitter feed. Can I unfollow or block him, or will he then deactivate my account?
I don't know.
It's a lot of risk.
He might have you
involved there.
killed. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. That's a good question.
Somebody, if anybody out there's unfollowed or muted him and survived it, let me know.
On the YouTube chat, distinguished gentleman says, "Who would boo the QB pick again? This has happened." Osama Yamama says, "When's the last time an edge rusher carried their team to Super Bowl?" Well, we just watched a team win the Super Bowl with. I mean, Sweat could have been the MVP of this Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
I've
their
watched
front four was phenomenal.
I've watched Super Bowls where Lawrence Taylor dominated the game, so I know that's going back. But I mean,
Well, go back to Tampa. I mean,
yeah, go
Kansas
back
City's lost 2 Super Bowls because
the pass rush
of the
destroyed
pass
them.
rush on the other side.
The pass rush destroyed them. 4-man pass rush in both those games. When the Titans didn't make it, but they were the number 1 seed, and they had one thing that was great in the playoff loss here, which was their pass rush. And that year, because Bud Dupree did get going a little bit, they had Simmons, they had Landry, they had who else am I forgetting? Well, Danico Autry. It was an absurd pass rush. That's the best thing about the team.
They sacked
I mean, Derrick
Joe Burrow 9 times.
Derrick Henry was also great, but he was hurt half the year, and they still got the number 1 seed. Why? Because of the pass rush. I mean, it's right after quarterback in terms of importance in football, I believe. So, Kay Doty says, if we know Levis is a bust, when can we call Richardson a bust? I don't know. I keep asking.
Richardson's a bust.
I keep asking Indy Ben what he thinks about Richardson.
He's absolutely a bust.
Well, is he done though?
Who's not calling him a bust? Well, he's not done because the Colts are stupid, not because he's good.
Yeah, I will say with him, I mean, I'm not optimistic, but he is the classic example of why did you ever play him in the first year? We should be talking about his first year right now, and it wouldn't be good, but man, there'd be a chance at least. There'd be a chance because that's how you ruin someone's confidence, and it's just
It's a bad player coming out. So that was a wishful draft pick.
Yeah, kind of. Whatever. I mean, it's easy to say that now. It hasn't worked out.
I said it then.
Yeah,
You could draft a guy that's played 17 games or whatever he played.
I understand. Also, people look. I saw him play a game in person where I'm like, oh, there's the number 1
You
pick.
keep contradicting yourself. You say that all these first round guys don't work out, and then now you're making all these cases.
I'm not contradicting myself
for them.
No, well, no, I'm not a contradiction. The math is the math. What I'm saying is he looked like a number 1 pick level quarterback in college when he played at Tennessee. He was incredible. And people who watched the film, they were like, yeah, he's actually a lot better than you guys think. Now, I understand it hasn't worked out. I mean, there's no argument. But there was a little bit exaggeration of how, like he had done nothing. Like he had demonstrated nothing. Like Jalen Milroe coming out, I'm running away from him. I've seen precious little to suggest he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. Anthony Richardson, in a few games that year, looked like a star NFL quarterback. There's the difference. All right, we come back.
Played very little.
Best and worst in sports on Robby and Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week. Now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst. You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I don't even miracles yet. Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle. It's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
Such a wonderful thing that Nick Keyser introduced me to. All right, it is that time of week, time of day, time of week, time of Thursday, best and worst in sports. I usually go first, but since I'm doing Mike 1 this week, how about you go first? We'll let you have the honors, Paul Koharski.
For best?
Best and worst.
Oh, I do both.
Yeah.
All right.
Both at the same time. Yes.
Well, DeAndre Hopkins, there were some rumors out there that he was retiring. They seemed false. He tweeted, "You haven't seen that last of me." Then he took it down. I don't understand why. DeAndre likes to not be clear
Right.
on things. That's something we learned about him.
Make people continue to guess.
If that was the end for him, it's nice to catch a touchdown and a 2-point conversion in a Super Bowl. He wore his dad's mink coat which had sentimental value. His dad died, I think, when he was a baby, or maybe before he was born. He got to play with Mahomes.
I think he was like 5 months old.
Okay. Got to play with Mahomes in his last go round after playing with a lot of bad quarterbacks. But it seems like maybe he's not going to retire. I looked at his career in terms of Hall of Fame potential. He's got 5 All-Pros, which is more than all these guys who are sitting in line for the Hall of Fame right now. So I just liked that he had this nice finish. I don't like to tell guys when they should retire. Seems like a good time for DeAndre Hopkins to retire.
Interesting best. Okay. And your worst?
Jeffrey Simmons. I can't quit him on this stuff. Jim Wyatt caught up to him at the Super Bowl, and guess what he talked about? Leadership. There's never been a Titan who's talked about leadership and led less than Jeffrey Simmons. He talks about leadership constantly. I think he thinks leading is talking about leadership. Just talk.
So what did he say? What did he say about leadership?
Said he needs to talk to a bunch of people about leadership to learn how better to help lead younger guys who didn't take constructive criticism well. Which is interesting because you know who I don't think takes constructive criticism very well? Jeffrey Simmons himself.
You may have a point there. Interesting. Nick Keyser, your best and worst.
Yeah. First off, I know that maybe not the huge fans in there about the 4 nations, but look, I think it's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
You're
and
wrong.
I know you know what?
This is
great. Best on best.
We can have an argument.
It's best on best. You have all-star hockey players that actually agreed to go play in something else other than the Olympics.
You have a league that says my product's inferior. Let's pause it for 2 weeks and let everybody go play in some tournament that includes 4 countries, 2 countries that nobody cares about.
No, that's not the case whatsoever. They're also being compensated for all this too, as they expected.
Oh, compensated. Well, that changes.
Well, but that's the biggest thing. They had to come to a huge agreement, and that's been a huge issue for years. And so if they weren't going to be compensated anything, they at least get an appearance fee. They also get something at the end that's not revealed quite yet. But if you have all-stars, that agreed to go play, you have Sidney Crosby at 37 years old who had 3 assists last night. You also are not seeing all the Russians, which I know there's all of that's going on. But look,
wait, so that's good. So you're
no. I'm not saying that's part of the greatest thing, but I'm just saying that if you have 4 different teams that actually agreed to have their best on best actually show up, that's pretty damn impressive if you ask me. So, and I mean, Team USA is loaded. They have not been this loaded in a very long time. I would say Canada, honestly, is a little bit of a weaker team this year, but I think last night was definitely not the game I expected whatsoever. It went to overtime. Canada was up 3-1. I mean, they go to overtime, and then it took them over 7 minutes to see a goal scored. I mean, it was a phenomenal game. I'm not going to lie.
Nicholas,
what's your worst?
Hockey shill. Surprise.
What's your worst?
worst, I would say Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I mean, look, and I love those memes that come out too. His quivering lip was pretty funny too. But yeah, Patty Mahomes was not himself in the Super Bowl.
All right, my best is the Eagles. They're great. They deserve all the flowers, including Jalen Hurts. Yes, you can make the case for somebody else to get the MVP, but it's not like he was a bad MVP. He was great in that game, including setting the quarterback rushing record in the Super Bowl. But my worst is the Four Nations. PK's talked me into it. So here's the thing. Here's what I want to – a few things come to mind, Nick. I mean, I generally agree with what PK said. Like, we're pausing the league for this. You're taking, again, there's a lot of the greatest players in this league are Russian, so they're just out. They're not invited. I'm
They shouldn't be invited.
I'm really bothered. And yes, maybe this is like because I was relegated to writing like Ellie Tolvanen's going to be awesome columns from Pyeongchang 7 years ago because they wouldn't send NHL guys to the Olympics. But this was a huge fight about and that's when it matters. The Olympics, everybody involved. You're playing for your country. You're playing for a gold medal. That is a prize. That is worthwhile. It really bothers me that we can't figure that out. And I know that like that's changed, but then we're going to do this thing when all these owners and GMs are freaking out about these guys beating the crap out of each other in something that's not part of the 82 game season and not part of the playoffs. And now this is okay. So, yes, this is my worst. Do you have a response, Nick? I'm giving you time for a response.
No response needed.
Wait, did he stop listening? He stopped listening.
Yes, I think
this is my worst because I'm arguing with you.
I think it's interesting that you believe that it's a worse thing to see the All-Stars show up. Why? Why is it bad that they are showing up?
It's bad that they're showing up. It's bad that they think
that
this is bigger than the
referring
Olympics.
to their best players for a tournament. You go to your best players for any tournament, don't you?
They didn't send them to the Olympics. These guys, I mean,
most recent, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of changes then too.
Well, this before you were, over at the Preds.
Yeah,
those guys were absolutely furious.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
about not going to the Olympics.
Yeah. I'm aware of them.
That is worthwhile. That is worth putting your stuff on the line in the middle of the season.
And that's what the whole
IHF is not.
Yeah, but that's what the whole International Federation. That was all their fault. They were poorly organizing everything. But it's also a matter of the CBA being in agreement with the NHL. So I think it's a lot of what the NHL did at the biggest level, at the corporate level. They really messed that up.
Right. So I'm just saying, like, this is cool. These teams are loaded. Like the games are fun.
How is it the worst if it's that? Okay, well, how is it worse if you think the games are cool?
Well, because there should never have been a time when these guys were not in the Olympics, and I just don't think this is worthwhile. It's still an incomplete. It's an incomplete tournament.
It's a new thing.
It's not a big enough scope to stop your season. It minimizes your league.
Well, they get a week off anyway, so this is just the right time.
Again, it's mind-boggling to me. I mean, I heard David Boyle making the case of like, you guys can talk about how great it would be, but these guys get hurt and they get banged up and all this stuff, and all the GMs were making the case of why it's a bad idea.
Well, they had to agree to it.
The Olympics, right? I understand, and I don't see how this is worthwhile. Alex,
also, you just said they get a week off anyway, so it doesn't matter. Well, you know who doesn't get a week off? All the best players.
Yeah. Alex says, does Paul also hate when the EPL takes a break for international tournaments? That's a huge thing in all levels of soccer.
No, yeah, but that's built into the cake forever. Like that's how the league has worked forever.
Mark says, don't have this tournament in the middle of the NHL season. Do it during the off season. I guess you could make that case too. It's weird. It is my worst. It's Nick's best. I think it's the first time we've ever had a best versus a worst. When we come back on Robby and Rexrode, we will talk. How about John Robinson back in the AFC South? Oh, my goodness. Please let it happen. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Second hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106 for the game, sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/getitall. We're broadcasting from the Bisbee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Paul Kaharski in for Robby this week. And I'd like to invite you. And Paul, I know you're looking for a way to go see this fellow alum of your high school. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vanderbilt women's basketball as the Commodores take on Mississippi State at Memorial Gym with an 8 p.m. tip-off. Pregame show, 7:45. Vanderbilt women's basketball presented by Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball. Coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium now through March 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets. And by the way, we're going to give away tickets to that next hour. But Michaela Blake's, you got to go.
She's ridiculously good. And
Yep.
she went to Rutgers Prep in Somerset, New Jersey, as did I.
Supplanting you as the greatest Rutgers Prep athlete of all time. It was a great run for you.
It was a great run.
It was a great run. Michaela Blake supplants you. No,
I am ridiculously
must-see.
in the Rutgers Prep Hall of Fame.
That is a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful. I need the bust. I need to see the bust.
It's a medal.
Oh, really? We don't have the feathered hair bust? That's too bad. Yeah, Michaela Blake's is absolutely must see, and I believe is someone who, before she's done in college, I think she's going to be a National Player of the Year candidate. I think she's that good. So check that out. We are going to get into John Robinson. I do want to make sure to let the people have some say here. So on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com, got a texter who says, Paul and Rexrode, a.k.a. grumpy old men who do not understand hockey. That was a great game last night, and I expect more the next week. Unlike the All-Star game, these guys play hard. Let me, quick aside, who mentioned the All-Star game? No one's mentioned the All-Star game. And continues, fantastic play on both sides. Stick to football and Joe, basketball. And leave hockey to those who actually understand the sport. I love that one. Yes. Can't, because you have a problem with something, you
can't understand.
Must not understand it. Hockey people do this a lot. I mean, I've spent my whole life. Soccer people do this a lot. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of sports where even honestly, college basketball fans get very kind of insular and you don't really get.
Well, the fewer people that are into it, the more clubby it becomes.
Yes. But so this whole, you don't understand. I mean,
the 14,000 people who are Preds fans in this.
I lived and died with every Detroit Red Wings shift for many, many years in Michigan. So, you can take that stick and shove it. But look, I mean, is it really the worst? It became the worst because I wanted to argue with Keyser. But it does bother me, relative to the Olympics. I've been texting with Vingan, and he said, hey, the games are like last night. I'm all for it. I mean, look, the rosters are cool. I think we'll have good games. These guys are into it. So that's fine, but I'm with you. I think it is strange in the middle of the season, and it really is strange given all the rhetoric of Olympic arguments past. Also, here's one for you, PK, which is interesting. Scotty says, please tell PK that Jeffrey keeps talking about leadership because he's struggling with it. He's young. He has a lot of growing ahead of him. Leadership doesn't just happen. It's lived. I will say to Scotty, somewhat in support, I mean, you're not necessarily wrong, but I do think it is important to him. Now, will he ever figure out how to be effective at it? I don't know.
He's in his 6th year.
Sure.
He's young. I mean, how long do you give Guy credit for being young? He's in his 6th year.
Okay,
he got a
how
second
old is he?
contract.
How old is he?
I don't care how old he is. If you're in your 6th year, you've been anointed the leader.
Mm-hmm.
You take it on yourself to be a leader.
But that's been how long?
Around the league, 6th-year guys lead. Around the league, I hate to tell it to you, 2nd-year guys lead. Big-time guys.
Some do. Yeah,
He's not a big-time guy in terms of leadership. He can't stop talking about it. It would be one thing if he said, I'm still trying to figure out this leadership thing, which is kind of what he's trying to say. But if you question him about leadership, what he does is get incredibly defensive about it. And what he does is he leads well when they're winning, and when they're losing, he doesn't. He gets defensive. He's not a good leader. And what he needs to do is step back. And what the organization needs to do is put somebody on defense who's a better leader than Jeff, an unquestioned leader, and tell Jeff to stand back to the defensive line room. He's part of the problem. It's not part of the answer.
Okay. I still would argue he is young. No, he is young.
Dude, he's one of the oldest guys on the team.
Well, that's the NFL. I mean,
Right, that's
okay.
the NFL. So if
Okay.
you're one of the oldest guys on the team, you don't get to say, I'm young.
Yeah.
Still figuring it out.
that's
You
what-
got to figure it out.
That wasn't him saying it. It was this texter saying it. But I tend to agree that as a human being, you can get better. You can get better in your
he can
20s, your
absolutely
30s,
get
your
better.
40s, your 50s.
But
okay.
it's time already.
Okay. Calm down. Yes, Brent says, yes, I know they're going to the Olympics. Yes, I know they're going to the Olympics next time. But again, this was an absolute, again, you go find some David Poyle quotes from back then when it was like, well, you guys don't understand how these commodities that these guys are, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, I'm with you guys all. Good games, good rosters. It'll be fun. I think it's weird, and they never, ever should have not been in the Olympics. John Robinson. Is this serious? Is this going to happen? Is this a real thing? No?
I don't think so. I mean, he interviewed for the Jets job. Why was everybody not all hot about that? Like, it's on the verge of getting the Jets job. We didn't hear that. Tony Waselli's a smart guy.
Well, here's the difference. The Jets job, he interviewed in that time period where like the Jets were interviewing people that they could talk to at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is now.
Well, the Jaguars are on a completely ridiculous timetable.
Yeah.
I mean, they hired their Vaselli 10 days ago or whatever.
So I have to look at this like it could happen.
Well, anybody they interview could happen. They interviewed Terrence Gray
you just
from Buffalo.
It. Don't poo-poo it. I think this could be real. And
I mean, for us to turn him into the front runner
here
is kind of
okay. Who are the other?
I don't know. Terrence Gray is one.
There's a kid that interviewed for it who looks like he's 12.
From
I
where?
don't know who that is. I'll find it, but it was Kevin Clark, posted this, and because he was like, people stop bothering me about this, it kind of looks like him, and I'm like, there's no way that guy could possibly be a GM in the NFL.
Trey Brown from Cincinnati Bengals, Los Angeles Rams Director of Scouting Strategy James Gladstone, San Francisco 49ers Director of Scouting and Football Operations Josh Williams, Bills Director of Player Personnel Terrence Gray.
So it's more of the traditional type of candidates.
James Gladstone looks like Kevin Clark.
Yeah, James. Yeah, look at that, James Gladstone. James Gladstone. You're telling me that guy's older than 15? That's insane.
Young is in.
Yeah, well, and most of these candidates are more of
all look young.
The traditional, on the rise, successful organizations. Obviously, John Robinson is, I guess, the retread. Okay, Beth, who's taking a break from ripping you here.
Hi, Beth.
Which is nice. She says, John Robinson volunteers at House on the Hill in West Nashville. And the last 2 times there, he has worn a Jacksonville hat, FYI.
He consulted a little bit.
Interesting,
in
Beth.
some way, shape, or form.
Look at Beth breaking news on the text line.
Look, I like John Robinson personally, and his early work for the Titans was very good. But then I go open the resume file, and he had some incredible work and did some incredible things early. And I would expect that he's learned a lot from the mistakes that he's made. But you look, and I mean, his last 3 years were horrible. And before that, he drafted Corey Davis 5th overall. He drafted Rashad Evans in the first round. That's 17 and 18. His 19 draft was
phenomenal,
spectacular. Simmons, Brown, Davis, Hooker, Long. A tremendous draft. But you get to 2020, 2021, and 2022, and it's just a wasteland. And this then makes Corey Davis, Evans, Wilson, Farley, and Burks. Those are 5 of his first-round picks. Who had the best career there? I mean,
Davis.
Yeah. And he did, very
second
little. Who's
paid.
the second best out of that group? Rashawn Evans, Wilson, Farley, Burks. That's horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it's Rashawn Evans.
And he was horrific. I mean, he had no instinctive play to him whatsoever. He's a goal line linebacker.
Good goal line linebacker. I didn't realize that this was going to turn into you ripping every bad move John Robinson made.
I'm just saying, I don't know how you talk yourself through this in an interview.
Yeah, well, it's he did a lot of good things, and then he did a lot of bad things, and in the end, he did have a good record, right? He did turn around a moribund franchise. What happened? That's the question to me. If I'm interviewing him, so what happened? And you and I've had the argument, like COVID, fine, you can, whatever. They didn't handle it well. That doesn't mean you're doomed to not handle things well after it, and they didn't. So why? That's my question. And we come back. I have a question, though, a more pressing question for Titans fans on this topic. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Like I said, we're going to be giving away those tickets, and also I'd like to let you know about Nashville's best deal this week. 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to a 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. So, okay, you are telling me that Stilly said Amy Adams Strong, worst move she ever made was firing John Robinson. I've heard him say many times, worst move was firing John Robinson in season. That's an important distinction. No?
That is an important distinction. That's not what I heard him say yesterday. And also he came up with all kind of theories, downing, drinking,
Still?
Yeah, I mean,
he's still talking about the plane from Green Bay.
He was touching on that stuff yesterday. I had a brief listen. I have to admit.
You hate listen to every word.
Well, no, it was a short car. It was a short car ride. But I mean, I get the feeling he's a big proponent of John Robinson because Floyd was a big proponent of John Robinson, and he can't venture off of what Floyd liked.
Well, I think John Robinson, in final analysis, was a good GM here.
Yeah.
He was a great GM for a while, and then he had a terrible run at the end.
I don't know how you just dismiss the terrible run at the end.
I'm not dismissing it.
This team is where it is right now because of what John Robinson did.
Yeah, I'm not dismissing it. I'm just taking the entirety of his tenure. So I mean, it of course counts in it. And yes, you can say, yeah, did his mistakes is that largely why they're here now? A lot of it, yeah, you can't say that's why. They've also not done things to fix
the offensive line problem is John Robinson's fault.
Well, but they still haven't, and maybe they have done some things. Again, like we talked about yesterday, Latham, Skoronski. I mean, they're certainly better outcomes right now than the three.
But they're chasing the hole that was created by Isaiah Wilson, Dylan Radins, and Nicholas Petit-Frere.
Yeah,
which is monstrous draft capital.
Well, and we said, talked about the A.J. Brown trade, still the worst thing he did. So, yeah, I understand how bad it was at the end. I'm just saying, like, there is the beginning.
Yeah, the beginning was good, and they got an AFC championship game and the 1 seed.
It's
but if you're putting
it's nuanced, Paul. It's complicated.
It is nuanced, but if you're putting all of that on the scale, I think that, and I
loved
bad? John.
You think bad GM?
I think on the scale, the results. Yeah,
okay.
The bad outweighs the good. Unfortunately, 3 terrible drafts sinks a franchise.
All right, so and that's a good debate that could spin off into a debate. But I want to ask this of Titans fans. I want to play out the fantasy that John Robinson explains himself and what all went on late in his Titans tenure, and sufficiently impresses Jags ownership and gets that job. And man, I mean, I'm so here for it. Like, I'm smiling just thinking about it. And we already know, of course, Mike Vrabel's with the Patriots. So, Titans fan, worst pain for you, John Robinson and the Jaguars. We could say winning it all, or we could just say, being consistently good and better than the Titans, or Vrabes and the Pats winning, winning it all, being consistently good, being better, winning. Which one of them succeeding at a high level in either of those spots would hurt you, bother you more? I'm fascinated by that question.
Oh, I think the answer's got to be Robinson. I mean, Robinson left under way worse circumstances. I agree. Robinson, by the way, should not have been fired in season. And I think at the time, I thought he should have gotten a year more to try to dig out. I'm against early firings. And so
I'm
on the record with both of those things.
It was a worthwhile conversation at the end of the season. It was going to come up.
Yeah,
fair to talk about.
One more year, I would have gone. But I think if John Robinson resurfaces now and has success in Jacksonville, first off, it's in your division.
Yep. So it's more directly costly to you.
Secondly, his successor was a failure, who lasted only 2 years.
Unless you consider Brinker a successor, yes.
Yeah, and then to watch him recover from this. When GMs who end badly like he did, and most people who get fired end badly, but GMs don't get a chance to recover. And so if you get him in the division and recovering from his ending and getting a second job, which GMs don't do, I mean, that's a dagger. And there wasn't massive complaints about John Robinson getting fired. There were massive complaints about Mike Vrabel getting fired, that the community was split on that. Some people wanted him fired. Some people didn't. So that Vrabel going to New England and having success, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I think he will, but that's not going to be some kind of big surprise. And you're not going to see him twice a year. You're going to see him occasionally. I think Robinson would hurt way worse.
Hurt way worse, yeah. That makes sense. Even the surprise element of him getting the job, like you said, the more direct, and it's just surprising to, I mean, frankly, it's surprising to have success like that with the Jags, with anyone, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, that's another thing. Historically bad franchise.
Yeah, that it all of a sudden becomes consistently better than you. Alex from Montreal says, just the name J-Rob makes me want to puke my breakfast. Wow. John from Asheville agrees with you. Rob's in the Jags, so they're in their division. They're good. Presumably they've beaten us once or twice a year. Bradford says, which is more likely to happen? Well, certainly. I mean, Vrabel has the job, and I think Vrabel will have at least reasonable success. So I don't know. I don't know how serious John Robinson's candidacy is, but I will say that just him being in there now interviewing for it gives me a thought. You said I know he's consulted with some teams, and you believe he consulted with them.
I mean, he's been on the field with them a couple times, so like at training camp.
So, I mean, there's some boots on the ground,
but
actual
I think that might have been
experience with him.
I think he might have been there as a guest of Balky, or somebody that's no longer a part of it. I don't know that it reached to Khan levels.
Yeah. Well, you would, but if he helped in some way, or if he was impressive in some way, maybe that's how he got this interview. So maybe that gives him a leg up. Look, I'd love to see it. I don't, for one thing, because I think it's weird that in this league, coaches can be retreads and just constantly recycled, but GMs almost never are, And look, I mean, personally, just on I always thought John Robinson was a stand-up guy.
Tremendous stand-up guy, and it really emphasized just how good of a stand-up guy he was when the guy after him wasn't a stand-up guy at all.
Philip says, you're against early firings, but you were all for Carthon getting fired after Robinson demolished.
I was not all
after
for
Robinson
Carthon.
Demolished the roster.
I was not all for Rand Carthon being fired. You remember me sitting here saying I didn't think anybody should have been fired. I thought they should have stuck it out and given it all one more year, despite the fact that I didn't think Rand Carthon was very good.
I mean, it's just, Philip's just bringing stuff up.
Well, Philip's remembering things incorrectly.
And Jonathan is bringing up, he says, Paul's jealousy of Jared knows no bounds.
I don't know how I'm jealous of Jared, that I think he's wrong that John Robinson was a good general manager. Right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know that I necessarily agree that the final analysis, I mean, isn't the final analysis just like coaches, like just what your win-loss record is?
Dude, first off,
what is his
first off,
record?
We agree that he shouldn't have been fired in season.
Yes.
Right? So he gets fired in season. That takes 7 losses off of his record. Right? So we're giving him a bonus of 7 losses that aren't on his record.
Give him those losses.
All right.
What's his record?
So his record, I don't know. His record is pretty good. But his record also includes 3 draft classes of crap that have affected the franchise since he's left. So I don't think you can judge him just on his win-loss record.
Well, okay. That's an interesting question. I feel like coaches and GMs should be judged by how much do they win, how much do they lose.
Well, the GMs, when he's got control over the personnel and he leaves you with Isaiah Wilson, who's not even on the roster when he leaves, and Caleb Farley,
doesn't every GM
and Traylon Burks.
Doesn't every GM leave a bad situation because that's why they get fired, right? I mean, typically, isn't that generally what you expect?
Yeah, but there's a echo that he left. And I'm not looking at every GM situation. I'm looking at his GM situation. I feel like you're really letting him off the hook for the damage he did to the roster. He got Mike Vrabel fired. He got Mike Vrabel, the best coach in team history, fired because he left him a roster that he couldn't win with.
Vrabel has no accountability in this?
Yeah, of course he has accountability in it. He didn't
develop
people
you're sucking
enough.
up to Vrabel. My God. Okay, we'll continue this when we come back. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. You know what? I'm going to give away tickets now because we got Charles Robinson coming up top of the hour. Nick, are you ready? Are you ready, Nick? All right, let's go caller 4 today. This is the Athletes Unlimited. Family 4-pack of tickets to the Athletes Unlimited professional basketball games at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium on Saturday, February 15th. Tip-off 5 p.m. See star players including Alicia Clark, Sidney Colson, Lexi Brown, Jordan Horston, Isabel Harrison, and more. Caller 4. Jordan Horston, a great player at Tennessee.
I know. I'm just making sure you get the name right.
Yeah, well, it's written Hurston, and I heard Stilly say Hurston, and I'm like, no, it's Jordan Horston. She was a great player with the Lady Vols. Okay, so you are screaming at me about John Robinson was a bad GM.
I'm not screaming at you.
A little bit.
We're discussing.
You're getting a little.
I think you're letting him off. I think you're letting him off the hook in a big way.
You're getting a little bit excited there. Lenny says if A.J. Brown had not been traded, Robinson Vrabel will still be here, and so would Derrick Henry. You buy that?
I don't know, but things would have been a lot better.
Jack says letting Conklin leave was the most underrated blunder by J-Rob. We talked about this yesterday. That's defensible. And obviously it led to the huge mistakes. So I get looking back on it, but also I get not. I mean, first of all, they did make an offer to Conklin, my understanding. It was not enough. He got more from the Browns, but they did not just say walk.
It's hard to pay.
They made an offer to him.
It's hard to pay Lawan and Conklin. You have to replace him better. The problem isn't letting him go. The problem is the massive failure in judging talent to replace him.
Right. So someone's saying like maybe John Robinson can get the I saw this on X, get the Jacksonville job and then trade Brian Thomas for Traylon Burks. What do you think?
He does like Burks.
Make things all better. Make things all better here in Nashville.
Get off to a
trade Brian Thomas Jr. here.
Here's one thing as we just talked about off air about John Robinson. I think it's been a mistake, and I know he can only say so much while he's still being paid by Amy Adams Strunk. I think this is the last year of that if he doesn't get a job. But he's never talked to anybody, and I think you've got to refresh your reputation somewhat by just kind of, even Vrabel did this. Like,
Zach
Vrabel got a reputation a little bit out there that he was difficult to work with.
Where the heck did that come from?
So he let a guy follow him around a little bit and had a story out there that where he clearly expressed how that in his eyes was not true. And so I think Robinson's made a huge mistake, and all this time he's not been working and not getting one story out there kind of saying, here's why things went south and here's what I'm doing now to improve my game and why I'm going to be such a better GM the second time around.
Yeah. Well, you and I
both have tried.
Tried to get him, after he was fired for sure. Tried to get him to, sit down, anything you want to do, anything you want to talk about, et cetera, et cetera. I get it to an extent, which is basically like, well, there are NDAs that happen in these situations, and a lot of money being paid to him over the years by Amy Adams Strong after she fired him.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful.
But you could navigate that.
I think you can navigate that.
You can navigate that in a way where you put out a lot of information that's not what's on your playlist or what books are you reading.
There you go. Caleb says there's no excuses for J-Rob. Too many horrible decisions. People think because the Titans went 9-7 a couple times, J-Rob's some genius. When in reality, took over a playoff team, got a good coach, and after making all-time bad draft choices and signings that fell apart. I think that's
they did go 12-4.
That's a little bit down on him and what he did. His first offseason was fantastic. I mean, his first offseason was not just the draft. I mean, he drafted some of the best Titans of all time in one draft. He also fixed a terrible offensive line in one offseason.
Got DeMarco Murray.
Got DeMarco Murray for nothing.
Got something for Dorial Green Beckham and Dennis Kelly.
Got offensive line depth for a complete zero receiver.
Very good early. I'm not dismissing the very good early.
Yeah.
But his first round picks were outside of Jeffrey Simmons, not good players.
No, I mean, so that's an interesting. I guess I'm still sticking with the easiest or the clearest way to judge a GM or a coach in the NFL is the totality of the wins. Okay, give John Robinson the seven losses. What's his record with the Titans? So it's basically the Titans record between 2016 and 2022.
Yeah.
You know, it's you give him those 7 losses, and it's certainly still a winning record. I mean, there's no doubt. Now, I don't know if it's a 60% winning, which I think it was if you don't do that. I mean, I hear what you're saying about leaving them. He did. He left them in a hole, and it was bad late with the early round choices, especially. But I mean, how many GMs who get fired leave teams in a good situation? You know, I have to think very few. Like, if you get fired as a GM, and and GMs, though
66 and 55, if you give them those 7.
Okay.
3 and 4 in the
66 and
playoffs.
55. I mean, I guess I would say pretty good. Great, then terrible, and then final analysis pretty good. But you say bad. Bad GM. He will be remembered as where is he not the second best GM in Titans history? I know that probably is a depressing reality for the franchise.
It's a terrible list. Look, I like the guy a lot, and he did some very good things early. But you can't be judged as a good GM if your list of first-round picks is Jeffrey Simmons and then Evans and Davis and Isaiah Wilson, Caleb Farley, and Traylon Burks. You can't call that a good GM. Good GMs have to hit on first-round draft picks.
Again,
that's the foundation of your team.
Yeah, but he did hit on Jeffrey Simmons.
Well, that's one. You're satisfied with one out of 1, 2, 3,
he
4,
hit on
5?
Jack Conklin. Conklin's a hit.
And Jack Conklin. So 2. That's 2 for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 out of 7 first-round picks is satisfactory to you?
No, it's not good enough. But he obviously compensated in other ways, right? I mean, it's like so like you're right, Corey Davis
compensated with this second-round pick.
Yeah, like Corey Davis. Corey Davis, not a good enough first-round
Christian
pick.
Fulton and Dylan Radins.
Well, but he also got A.J. Brown second round. That
who he gave up on after 3 years.
Who he later traded. Yes, that is right. I mean, it's, again, no one's saying it was amazing. Someone says 100 attaboys can be wiped away by one oh crap. Yeah, I mean, I get it. He set the team back. I do think also as we move forward, you're right, they have the holes and everything, but like, can we stop blaming him for stuff? Can we next year, like, look at the Titans and say, figure it out? Like, they need to figure it out this offseason. They've had 2 off seasons without him here.
I agree. I mean,
can we move on? Can we move on from that?
His successor didn't do enough to help them move on from that. I agree. They should be beyond it, but they haven't done well enough to patch the holes.
I think that's what we should. I think it's pretty clear, first of all, that it would hurt Titans fans more if Vrabel were to win, to get that job and to win. And also,
you think it would hurt them more for Vrabel to win?
I apologize for Robinson. Yes, for Robinson. And also, I think most people agree with you. But like next year, whatever it is, whatever it looks like, we got to stop invoking John Robinson's name as the culprit. Like, it's enough, right? I mean, how many years after a guy leaves can he still be to blame?
Well,
you can do a lot of things in every NFL offseason.
I agree with you to an extent, but 2022 should be a 5-year contract for your first-round pick. 2022, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Traylon Burks should have been a factor on this team through 2026. McCreary, NPF, Willis, all should have been factors on this team through at least 2025. So, yeah, after this year, outside of receiver, his fingerprints should be gone.
I mean, I'm going right now.
But you're still chasing holes on the roster.
Sure. But I'm going right now because I mentioned this the other day, and of course now my computer is crawling to the Eagles draft history. The best roster in the NFL, the best, the Super Bowl champion.
Look at their 2022
holy
draft.
Crap, this freaking computer. My God.
I mean, you have a brand new computer sitting at home.
Yes, but Andre Dillard, right? So the point being, you can make those mistakes and you can make up for them. Obviously, look, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, they've done really well. But yes, how about Andre Dillard? How about
but
I mean
these are
Jalen Rager in 2020. Okay, so that's
and they went and fixed it by fleecing the Titans with the trade.
exactly. That's my point. You can make these mistakes and you can do things to fix them. So now it's on these guys to do things to fix them.
Okay, but here's their 2022 draft: Jordan Davis, Cam Jurgens,
Yes,
Nakobe Dean.
right.
Top three.
You can draft well too.
Right.
You can. What I'm saying is, you can have these horrific mistakes and be okay because you do other good things. The Titans are not doing anything to fix things.
No, I understand what you're saying, but they have spotty, horrific mistakes. I don't. Somehow you're not getting the monumental failures of these three drafts.
Sure, I am.
From
I've talked about
2022,
it and
Christian Fulton is the only guy in the league.
Yeah.
Their number one pick played 4 snaps.
I understand this.
Okay.
I totally understand how bad these things were.
All right. Well, you're comparing the Eagles, who made like one mistake, with Andre Dillard.
No, I just gave you 2 first-round picks that were horrific. Back to back.
2.
Dillard and Rieger, okay?
All right, well, I'm giving you 4. That's double.
I understand, Paul. But the point is, they did that, and they have the best team in the NFL. They have the best roster because they drafted well, because they made good trade. They fleeced the team. You can fix it. That's all I'm saying. You can fix it. And we're going to still talk about John Robinson here? No, that's enough. All right, we come back. It's time for the Rex Rant. We're going to talk about the Nashville Predators. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
Yes, they've given Saros the extension, and it would look bad to trade Saros now. But I think they need to get rid of him. I think they need to move on. I think they need to recognize what reality is. My problem is, I think everybody over at Bridgestone Arena who works for the Predators, they overvalue what UC Saros is. And they can't see it any other way.
Little Stilly clip coming into the Rex Rant. I'm actually not ranting about Stilly, but we have a lot to get to here. Okay, so trying to think which do we go football first, hockey second, or hockey first, football second, or you know what I'm saying? What do we start? Football or hockey?
You're ranting, correct?
Yeah, I mean it's very simple. It's absolutely. It's just absolutely. We've said it, but I just want to and listen to Stilly there. And I don't agree with him. I don't think they're not trading Saros here at the front end of his contract. They've made their choice, and they may well have made that bed, and it may be real uncomfortable. But I mean, it's just not. That's not living in reality. I know that's shocking for Stilly. It's just absolutely insane to me, and so unfair that the Nashville Predators have had this season on top of what's going on with the Titans. If you are a Nashville sports fan, and I know a lot of people listening to this show are fans of both teams, some are fans of one or the other. Good for you if you're not fans of both. For a Titans fan to come off this crap and what they've been, as we've been talking about more today, all that's led to it, and then to have what I would argue is right up there among the most anticipated seasons in Preds history. I think certainly the 17-18 season would be, right. And early, they had some great teams as well in 06, 07, but the 17-18 season coming off the Cup final, the team that won the President's Trophy, there was a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement. And that was actually, that was validated. For the Preds to come out and have the worst this is the most disappointing, the worst season in franchise history, is such a bleep sandwich for the sports fans of this city. And it really pisses me off. I don't know that we've been angry enough about it. So there's that.
Yeah, get more angry.
There's also, since we're on hockey, I do want to revisit really quickly the Four Nations thing with a couple texts that I didn't get to earlier. Ricky says, there's no one in the world who loves hockey more than me. I watch 68 games a night. I have my own podcast. I consider myself an A-plus fan. I have zero interest in this tournament other than I'm waiting for a major starter to get hurt. Fans will go crazy. Fan base will be upset. The outcome of the Stanley Cup is affected. Tournaments like this do not belong in the middle of the season. And also tell Paul to have another donut. That's Ricky. Joy from Belleville says,
is that a Koharski joke? Have another donut, you fat pig. Don Koharski. You don't remember this?
No, what's that
I
from?
thought you're a hockey guy.
Oh, is that from
is it Jim Schoenfeld, the coach? Screamed at Don Koharski, have another donut, you fat pig.
Okay.
Wow.
Maybe.
I mean, you're the hockey guy.
Yeah, maybe. Joy from Bellevue says, I think the Four Nations tournament's a slap in the face of the other nations. Isn't Draisaitl from Edmonton one of the best players? Or Ovechkin, who will break Gressy's goal record? I said that earlier, too. When you take a break, international break in soccer, all the leagues in Europe stop playing, so all the best players of their nations eligible to play their national league. I agree with that, too.
Russia's a little bit of an exception right now, and understandably so.
Yeah.
You're not inviting them.
Well, they have some of the best players in your league.
That's fine. But you're not inviting them.
Okay, well, they play in the league. They're here playing in the NHL.
Yeah, but you don't invite that flag to your tournament.
By the way, and I want to thank you for bringing politics in this show. There's people on Twitter like, oh, look at Elon, man. So I got to mute all these people today. So I appreciate.
All I said was, can I unfollow him or block him?
Yes, it's fine. I think you can give it a shot.
That's not political. That's a question about my Twitter account.
Yeah.
That it's political to you is a you problem.
Oh, no.
It's not you, the people.
Yeah. These people are little lies. All right, so on my personal text line, I have Stilly. Now, Stilly yelling at you. He says, I think it's kind of BS for Paul to blame Robinson for those 7 losses. They win at Jacksonville if he isn't fired during the week. It's like saying, well, the QB didn't get hurt.
That's ridiculous to forecast a win or a loss.
I agree with the Jacksonville game. I think the Jacksonville game is a win. But
guess what? They lost it. So the fact of the matter is, it's in the standings as a law.
That is true. He also says, how come Washington busted all those first-rounders is good now? Chase Young, Davis, Dotson, Forbes, all bust, and then the NFC Championship.
Look, I'm not saying the Titans did a good job replacing John Robinson, made good moves after that.
Right.
That's part of the failure of the franchise.
Yeah, and that is all
Still,
I'm saying.
Text me. Don't text him about me. Text me about me.
That's what he does, though. Like when he complains about
Because
me.
he fears.
Well, no, he complains about me. He'll text Robby sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like.
Face up to the people you complain about. This is just like you never go in the locker room facing guys you say suck.
Woo. Well, we'll have Stilly on tomorrow at 7 a.m. so you guys can talk about it. And I got one of the biggest hockey fans I know, Vinny from Nolensville.
Vinny.
Giant Rangers fan. Lifelong says he totally agrees with Ricky. I hate these in-season tournaments. I went to bed at the first period last night, even though I know it was a close game. You know, Vingan likes it, and he said it'd be interesting to see if like ratings are good. You know, it's a time of the year when there's opportunity. But yeah, I don't think that there's obviously there's not some majority love for this tournament, and I get it, you know. So
and I know
for those of
different.
you who do love it, don't try to tell people they don't know anything about hockey.
Hockey's different. It could be part of its charm, but no other league is pausing its season to have a tournament outside of the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean the NBA does the in-season thing, which I think is stupid.
But it's stupid. But it's its own league.
But it's still its own league, and it's there, and they still count those games count and all that stuff. So, yeah. So I don't know. That was a rant about the Preds sucking. Not cool. It's just really it's. I think we're. I'm not saying we're been easy on them, but
you just shoved them in the back.
It's so stunning, you know, that it's like, and it's just so. It's again coming on the heels of the Titans again. You know, you're talking about these two teams might have the number 1 pick, which you talk about a rarity.
Gleno did a piece on that. How many times in the last 50 years the same city's had 2 first-round picks?
Do you remember the conclusion? There was probably like 3 or 4, right?
I saw a headline. I didn't say I read it.
Good job, Johnny Boy. Well, I'm going to find that. I'm going to find that piece before the show ends. But when we're coming up next, we're going to get back into the NFL at large with our weekly guest, Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Third and final hour, Thursday edition, Robby Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We are broadcasting today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And as we do every Thursday at this time, happy to welcome in our friend Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports, who I texted like I always do, and I said, what are we talking about, Charles? And he just completely ignored me. So I guess Charles wants to go rogue today.
Yeah, it's in your hands. Every once in a while, he's got to turn the wheel over. So
I will assist.
Paul, is your computer not muted? Please mute your computer.
It's muted. Come on. I will assist. I will assist in this rogue operation.
Amateur hour. Amateur hour.
Yeah.
This is going really well.
Well, I mean, Joe causes chaos. You're getting out of New Orleans, which is always a difficult time getting out of the Super Bowl city. And what you tweeted was that the holographic cover of the Super Bowl program was setting off baggage alarms. How is this possible, and how big was the chaos that this was causing?
I mean, and it happens every year. That's the crazy thing. That's why, like, it's a nightmare if you check your bag, because you know, A, it's going to take forever to get out of the Super Bowl city you're trying to leave. And then B, you know, they've even gotten to the point now where they'll message you ahead of time to make sure that you're not putting these things in your bag. So every bag that runs through X-Ray, because these programs that they give away at the Super Bowl all have this kind of foil cover. They've had it forever. This has been going on. I mean, this is probably my 20th Super Bowl, and every single one has had this cover. And yet it still continues to be a problem. So every time people check bags, they start going through X-Ray, you know, and it's not like at the counter. It's always happening, you know, behind. Once you put it on the conveyor belt, it disappears into the Wizard of Oz, you know, the Land of Oz. And then next thing you know, you're getting called up there because your bag has set something off, and TSA is now opening it. They're looking through it. So it extends the amount of time you have to wait. It took me, and it's funny because I scheduled out late. I always think the morning's got to be the worst. Everybody's trying to get out of the city as soon as possible. So I tried to get out of there later. It took me, I don't know, five or 6 hours from leaving my hotel to getting to the airport and actually getting to my gate.
Oh God!
And which in New Orleans is not. It's not like the airport's. It's not necessarily close, but in no traffic. You know, it's a half an hour trip, and instead it was, I don't know, sitting in traffic for a couple of hours. It's for all the New Orleans Super Bowls I've ever been to, I felt like this one was the worst. Trying to get out, it was just a total nightmare. They weren't letting planes leave because there weren't enough people on them, because everybody was stuck in line, and yeah, it was a racket trying to get out of there. So I'm glad to be home. That's for sure. Next time I drive to Houston. So
primary takeaway, Charles. I mean, all the takes have been flying around. You know, you got Mahomes, and certainly we've talked a lot about. Look, this is Jalen Hurts. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts getting a little bit disrespected for how he played and what he is as a quarterback, but they won convincingly with a very good quarterback, not an all-timer, not an elite quarterback. But I think this is a great example of, if you're dominant up front in this league, what that can do for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a defensive win, really. It was for Philly. They were so overwhelming defensively, and I think when I watched it, I could just see that, you know, Kansas City had this attitude over the last couple of years that Patrick Mahomes will raise all boats, and you can have a rotation of wide receivers where no one's necessarily special. You can have a rotation of running backs where no one's necessarily special. Maybe you can get away with some failures on the offensive line where you know, you're scrambling, you're moving Joe. Is Joe Tooney going to be guard, you know, this week, or is he going to be a tackle this week? What are we going to do? And you know, Mahomes in past years at the highest level of his game could cover for some of that, but you could see it instantaneously against the Eagles. I mean, they looked outclassed immediately, and they build the same way. The Eagles build the way Reed used to build there was offensive and defensive line. That was where you poured in a lot of your resources. You really focused in on that. That's the way Howie Roseman likes to build in Philly. And you could just see the difference between the units, both offensively and defensively. The Eagles were just so much better on the lines, and it wasn't even remotely close. And my thought process by the end of the game, I just thought, okay, Kansas City, this is it. They're going to have to rebuild now around Mahomes. They're going to have to go out and find, receivers that aren't, okay, we've got 5-6 guys. Who knows who's going to be the guy this week? It'll be predicated on what Mahomes, who he gets dialed in with. They can go get Kareem Hunt off the couch. No, you can't do that anymore. You actually need a special primary back behind him. Travis Kelce, it was unbelievable how rough he looked on the field. I mean, he had a couple of drops, but it was just that he seemed so slow. Like there was no separation for him in routes. His blocking was really, really rough. And you could tell when you watched it, I couldn't believe how bad it was though when I went back and rewatched the game on TV rather than from a box. Just how slow he was getting out of his stance on blocks. And so I mean the Chiefs, the way I termed it going into this game, it was like a team that they weren't catching greens, they were catching yellows all season. Every intersection was a yellow light, and eventually you were going to hit a red. And this was the game where they hit a red, and the Eagles just, outclassed them in so many different ways. And I give Howie Roseman credit. He completely built 2 Super Bowl winning teams kind of in different ways with different quarterbacks. Granted, from a salary cap, standpoint, at some point, they're going to hit an iceberg here. You can only have so many void years with so much money, and they're going to have to make some decisions here. But they hit on young players, and that's huge, for Philly when you got to dig yourself out of cap problems. But it felt, I don't know how it felt to you guys. It was a bad Super Bowl. It's been a while since I felt like I've been to a bad Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a great run. No doubt about it. I think it goes back to the Panthers Broncos, right? Panthers Broncos. We've had a hell of a run.
Yeah.
I mean, Patriots Rams was pretty crappy to watch, but it was still technically a competitive game. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this was, it felt like, I remember Broncos Seattle when
it was back to back with the Broncos. Terrible. One loss, one win for them. Yeah.
One loss, one win. But this was that one where, Seattle was so dominant in that game and the Broncos were just blown out so fast where you're just like, oh my God, this is just a dog. And it kind of turned into that. And there was never that moment. There was never the 28-6 moment where it's like Patriots Falcons where you're like, they could still have a chance. It did not feel like the Chiefs had a chance. Like it was just Mahomes was constantly under pressure. He didn't look good, pressured. And I'll ask you guys this because I do think it's an interesting question. We continue to look at Mahomes, and there's no doubt in my mind, Mahomes, elite, great. I still think he's, if not the best player in football, he's perennially in that conversation. But I think we do have to admit we have not seen the ultra, automatic MVP Mahomes in a couple of years now, right? I mean, can we agree on that we have not seen?
Yes, but I think that's because of what's around him. I mean, I think that's because of what's around him, right? I mean,
right? Yeah.
But
don't you think,
I agree.
That's part of, like, Dan Watson and I are sitting there and we're watching the game, and I kind of remarked to Dan, like, to me, this is a little bit of the greatness of Brady, is that when I watch Mahomes, and it's not like Brady didn't have the same thing. He went 10 years without winning the Super Bowl. But it's not just an automatic now that you plug Mahomes in and he's going to, make it right. And I don't want to kill him here because obviously they had a great season.
He still made how many clutch plays the last 2 years, or how great did he play at Baltimore last year, right? Like he had enough moments where you're like, okay, when he really needs it, he finds it. He didn't at all in this game.
Couldn't.
Yeah. It's just, I think the being under pressure reduced him to me. We have this GOAT conversation. Everyone was so sure heading into this game. He's going to catch Brady, It's going to happen. And I made the remark, like, we all said it about, like, Tiger and Jack Nicklaus, right? Tiger came out of the gate. We're like, he's definitely catching Jack Nicklaus. He's going to have all the most majors, all this stuff. And then obviously, whether it's on the course or off, he ran into different things in his career. It wasn't like it was just marital issues. He had back problems that completely derailed his career. And I think we should just be careful about assuming that this guy is going to be able to track down Tom Brady when Tom Brady played at an insane level until he was 45. I mean, the insanity of that set in a little bit for me watching Mahomes in this game, where you're like, oh, other teams do catch up, and now the Chiefs have to show they have the ability to adjust and reload. And it won't be, I personally don't think it's going to be fast. I think it's going to take a couple of years to really line that team with some talent and replace some of these guys. I don't think Kelsey's easy to replace. I don't think that offensive line no offensive line nowadays is easy to just turn over from one year to the next. And then like I said, it goes to every skill position around him as well, where they lack quite a bit offensively to be able to, I think deal with the level of defenses that they're going to start to run into, especially in the AFC.
Real quick on your Brady point, I think it's all fair. I think longevity is obviously huge. Tom Brady played 22 seasons in the NFL, so 12 of his seasons he did not play in a Super Bowl, right?
Right.
So again, I'm not knocking him. I mean, he played in 10, he won 7. But I'm just saying, like, Mahomes could have a stretch of a rebuild and come back, and by then everybody will bury him and say, "Well, that's what people were doing with Brady." I mean, when you get into the 07, then he has the ACL in 08, all that whole stretch where they were just okay. It was like, well, we'll never hear from that guy again. But then we did. He had a total second act, totally different, like, dynasty with the same. And so I don't know if that's going to happen with Mahomes or not. The longevity is the incredible thing with Brady, but it could. Right. I mean,
so here's the thing, though, that you have to think about, too, is, Brady had Belichick all that time. Mahomes may not have Reed all that time. Right. I think even after this game, you're like, okay, like Andy's saying he's going to come back in 2025, but it's already that question every year. How long are you going to stick around? So he may not have that coach, where I think Brady's Super Bowls, most people agree, like, if you really know the dynamics of it, you really go back and look and comb through the numbers, maybe the first half of the Super Bowl wins were Bills, the second half were Tom's. And, they both had a hand, they played a hand differently, that tandem. So Mahomes may not have the coach tandem the entire time. And I have said this in the past, and I will continue to say it. What Brady did from the age 35 to 45 is so insane in the NFL that for people just to think it could ever be replicated it's never been replicated in history. So the assumption that another guy, any guy, even Mahomes, anybody can just come out and replicate that in the last 10 years of his career. I used to, look, I would make the joke. I'd be like, how come we don't ever talk about Brady and, like, HGH, or like, what is he doing? Is this really just the TB12 system where this guy physically is holding it together at a high level in years when, Breeze hit his late 30s, and you're like, okay, you can see it, like, it's coming. And usually the decline is a cliff. It's not, hey, they lose a little bit of the fastball every year. It didn't even feel like really he did that until, maybe the last year he was in the league. So, it's going to be a fascinating conversation with him. And there's a lot of heavy lifting, I think, to do with the Chiefs, even with that record, even making it to the Super Bowl. There were, during the Super Bowl week, at one point I said, like, it felt like they were so bored. Like, the Chiefs felt like this experience was so rote for them, where they're just like, can we just get to the game? And I do remember it getting like that with the Patriots as well. But you have to be able to obviously maybe feel that way, but not, you can't come out flat. And I said during the week, I think there's a chance the Chiefs come out flat in this game. I didn't know they would come out flat because they got flattened. But that's ultimately, what really happened. So that division too, that's another thing. Like, you talk about the AFC East with the Patriots. The AFC West is that's just a murder division for how long with the coaches. That's the problem too. It's coaches and quarterbacks, and it's going to be a brutal division for a really, really long time.
Now the Brady question is Botox, not HGH. What do you think about what's going on in Jacksonville? What do you think of Tony Baselli as their top executive? Where do you think they're heading with GM at this late stage?
J-Rob?
I think J-Rob's got a shot. I really do. I think he's got a chance. And the Liam Cohen thing was just, everything has been, oh my God, what a mess this entire offseason. And the crazy thing about the Liam Cohen hiring that, really made you aware how messy this was going to get was early on. I was hearing out of their building, like, they loved Liam Cohen. They loved him a really long time. They were not looking really like Ben Johnson was not their guy. Liam Cohen was their guy all along. And then you watch how this goes down, where they just botch it so horribly with Trent Baalke, where everyone's telling them the guy's got to be out. He can't be here. I heard there were like Zoom calls with coaches where, Shad Khan was saying, if you want to fire Trent, you can fire Trent. He's on the Zoom call. Like, it was just, and coaches who are doing the interviews are like, that's not really the responsibility I want. Maybe you guys should just handle this. So, if the decks are truly clear the decks. Don't keep them around to arrange interviews. And then maybe we see if he sticks on after this. Baselli, there's familiarity there, which does not surprise me at all with the ownership group. It's just everything, the way that this has gone has been so chaotic. I do think Liam Cohen can do well there. I think they're actually set up for what he does well. I would imagine Jacksonville's running game is going to get a whole heck of a lot better. And they have the backs to do it. He has, between Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne, I think they have the ability to be a pretty dynamic running team right away. The way he schemes it up when you talk to guys across the league, he's very creative as, a run scheming head coach. And so I think that'll be a huge lift. I think for Trevor Lawrence, I think they have the pieces there actually offensively to turn it around pretty quickly, knowing what they have in Brian Thomas Jr. Again, knowing how they'll lean into the run. I think it'll make a difference for them pretty quickly. Now, GM wise, yeah, I do think J-Rob's got a chance, but it's just, I think ownership has been bad for a really long time. I think it was showcased more this offseason than ever before, just the way that they approached this. And even going into last season, when you saw Shad Khan saying things that clearly the GM, Travis Baalke, was saying to him at the time, Trent Baalke was saying to him at the time, and then you would see Doug Peterson literally at podiums. I was like, Doug feels like Doug's trying to get fired here. Like Doug Peterson almost making fun of some of the comments, like in the press conferences, where I'm like, it's just so openly backwards in this franchise, and it starts at the top. There's going to be something to overcome, even if John gets that shot ultimately. Which of the candidates they've brought in, I think, from an experience standpoint, he probably brings more to the table than a lot of people they've interviewed at this stage.
So we've asked about this, but we're going to continue until the Titans figure something out. But I mean, it just seems like Aaron Rodgers is going to be light on opportunity.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm asking. I feel like he's got to be considered, like it's got to be considered an actual decent sized percentage of the possibility for the Titans. Some people disagree with me on that. But then there's also, just wondering if there's anything new on your end on like Stafford being moved or whatever that's going on there. Darnold, and the Vikings. I mean, do you agree with me that Rodgers to the Titans or something like that he's going to have to be relegated to? Just like if you want to start in this league, you got to go to a place like that. Yeah,
I do. I think he's not going to be. Beggars can't be choosers, and he's going to be a beggar.
Is he going to be a beggar though? Like, is there a chance that he's just like, you know what? No,
done.
Yeah.
Well, he might. Yeah. Okay. There's that. I think it's. Do I want to if I'm going to go out here and I don't have my ability to, choose where I want to go, could he just hang it up? Absolutely. I definitely think that's a possibility. I can't answer. That guy's so off in his own, in his own world when it comes to this stuff that I can't even tell. When you talk to his friends and you're like, can I get a read on this? And at this point, they just shrug. They're like, I don't know. Like when he takes time now in off seasons, his circle is so much different and smaller than it used to be in past years. No one's really fully sure, who he's listening to. That documentary comes out, and I literally, it was crazy because someone who's known him for a really long time said to me, there were like personal moments in that documentary, which obviously is it's docutainment. That's what I always call it. They're like, he's at points he's having like these personal moments with people. I don't even know who they are. I've never heard of that person in my life. I've never heard him talk about that person. Like, they're just shocked at this existence that he has away from people he's known for years and years and years. And they don't know if, what kind of impact are these people having on this decision-making process when it comes to football? Who is he taking? Like, whose counsel is he taking at this point? He's just really on his own, but I don't think it's going to change in terms of, him having a bunch of opportunities all of a sudden. I would be shocked if Sam Darnold's back with the Vikings. The Rams situation with Stafford is weird to me.
Shocked if he's back. What are they doing? I don't get that.
What do you mean? I mean, I don't think that the Vikings are going to be inclined to pay him $40 million. I mean, here's the deal. I don't get like not doing a tag year after what he did last year. I mean, you got a rookie who's coming off an ACL. Okay, so it's two things. Number one, I think they feel like if they could get him on, I think if he goes out there in free agency, which is what's going to happen, and all of a sudden he looks and says, man, you know what? There's just not this long line of people who want to run out here and pay me $50 million plus. Maybe, sticking in Minnesota and taking a $40 million a year deal where I'm really only guaranteed 2 years of salary here. I think if he's willing to do that, I think they will seriously consider that more than this idea that he's going to go out there and sign, 5 years, $250 million with, $150 million in guaranteed money. I don't think they're going to sign up for that experience. And I told you before, I think part of the problem here is the way that he ended the season. The troubling part of it was that he lost 2 big games. He didn't lose them the same way. We discussed this. Like, this is inside their building.
Yeah, I understand that. I'd still tag him though for a year. I understand the knock.
But Joe, they want to sign other guys. Joe, I mean, they want there's other there's other talent they want to keep.
Well, I look forward to them going 7-10 next year with JJ McCarthy at quarterback. That'll go over well.
I mean, look, I don't. Kevin O'Connell's a pretty dang good coach, and they seem to have a lot of faith that they can get that ceiling out of JJ. I don't know if they can or not, but we'll see it. But in terms of like Rodgers, again, like Stafford, the Rams thing with Stafford is odd to me because I think there's I don't want to say there's a differing of opinion inside the organization when it comes to him, but there certainly is I think McVay is more than willing to have Matt Stafford come back. I don't think he's necessarily pushing him out the door, but I do think the financial amount is going to matter. I do think, there are people who are like, let's look at our other options and see, if it's Jackson Dart, if there's, is there a young guy that we can pivot to now and start that process? But I don't think, I just don't think it's this slam dunk that they're absolutely, going to do a 1-year deal with him. And that is ultimately what it would be when it comes to the amount of guaranteed money. So it's more up in the air. I thought by now we would know a little more definitively, but neither Les Snead, the GM, or Sean McVay, obviously the head coach, has been committal in any way when it comes to Matt. I think a lot of that has to do with, how they want to negotiate. And then I do think they're trying to get a look at maybe what some of the other options will be, including a draft class, whether there's a third quarterback there who comes out of the East.
Interesting. Charles Robinson, Yahoo Sports. Thank you, my friend. And next week you won't have to deal with me introducing you, so you'll be more comfortable. But
So
you'll miss Kaharski, though.
Yeah.
I won't get all the
What a
text
trade.
messages leading into the show. Hey, what are the topics?
I'm texting you at 5:30 a.m. next week, so be ready.
Doesn't mean he wakes up for it.
I'm coming off the Super Bowl. My knees killing me. I got Joe's like, give me the topic.
Relentless topics now.
His knees killing him like he played in the game.
Gotta get that treatment. Gotta get the treatment. Gotta get in the cold tub. All right. Thanks, Charles.
Yeah, Chief.
We'll talk to you next week. See ya. That was Charles Robinson. We'll react to him. Coming up next, Robby Rexrode 1025-1063 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. And all right, we'll go to Ed in Jersey. We got some. We're getting texted about a trade idea that blows my mind. We'll get to that.
Not Titans related.
Not Titans related, but it is in the AFC. But Ed in Jersey on the line on a Titans trade. What's up, Ed?
Hey, good morning, guys. Just isn't the optimal window for them to trade this pick, right after the combine, the 2 weeks in between the combine and free agency? I mean, if they get a quarterback, not any quarterback, but a certain quarterback, Titans would tip their hand in free agency. Other quarterbacks would sign with other teams to reduce the trade partners that you might have. So to me, waiting until the draft day is kind of a risk, unless you're absolutely sold on Carter and Hunter and, are willing to take that risk to drive that last minute value up. But that's, to me, that 2 week window, I think, is when the Rams traded with the Titans in that same window when they traded it before. I think that's the optimal window, in my opinion.
Rams trade was 2 weeks before the draft. I agree with you about optimal window, but I also think the idea about tipping your hand with what you do in free agency, unless you get Stafford, I think you're not saying too much.
Like you still could, in theory,
get both
QB.
Yeah. I think Atlanta really helped with that, because it's not unprecedented now to sign even a big free agent, bigger than the Titans would be signing anybody in this market, and invest high capital in a rookie quarterback, which they did with Cousins and Penix,
which I thought was insanely stupid. But
right.
I guess it worked out okay. If Penix is going to be good, they needed him at the end of the year. They didn't get in the playoffs, but they needed him based on Cousins' performance.
Yeah, and I don't like the idea of the Titans doing that. I mean, if you're spending number one on a quarterback, you shouldn't be investing anything but just money. I mean, if you're spending just money on a veteran quarterback, that's fine. But you can't be dealing anything for a quarterback if you're spending number one on a quarterback.
You can't be reducing your draft capital and using the high pick on the QB.
Absolutely agree.
Bad.
Now, speaking of these
business.
Draft quarterbacks, I don't know if you've had the pleasure, and I know you're a big Shedeur Sanders guy, but if it's the Titans or whoever it is, if you're drafting Shedeur Sanders, you're not just getting a quarterback. You're getting a music guy. He put out a video, and here he is. Everybody get up and dance. Soak it in. I'm sure this is available wherever you stream.
What's the name of this? Is this your favorite Shedeur Sanders?
As far as I know, it's the only Shedeur Sanders. It's available on the interwebs. It was tweeted out. Video.
The video too? Okay.
Oh no, it's about the video. I don't know if it's about the song at all. So it's meant to be watched, I think, more than
that's what I'm saying. Like there is a video of the whole thing. Okay, I'll have to check that out.
You into that?
No, that sounds, I mean, frankly, that sounds exactly like all the music that my kid listens to, that I'm like, they all copy each other and it's mumbling. It's just not very good.
Yeah.
Now, again, Kendrick Lamar is awesome. That's different.
Don't bring Kendrick Lamar into it. I will say this.
Well, he is. He's great. Drake is good too.
I will say this to Shedeur Sanders. I will give him advice that Tajay Sharp once offered. Stay your lane.
Oh yeah, that's right. What was he saying?
Stay your lane.
Was that a tweet?
I think he was trying to tell the media to stay in their lane, which was
about
hugely hypocritical, because he was trying to do this very thing with music when he should have stayed his lane trying to catch football.
Tajay Sharp was?
Yeah.
I don't remember his music at all.
Yeah, well, it's very not memorable because it sucked, just like this.
Interesting. That's thank you for bringing that to the show. But okay, before we get to this trade, we got Adam in Portland on the line talking about the Titans pick. What's up, Adam? Did you like that song?
It's a banger, dude. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I wish he would have put the word Titans in there or something that would let us know it's about football.
You couldn't have heard the word Titans if he said the word Titans. It's indecipherable.
Yeah, Yeah, he can remix it later. Hey, real quick. So the Titans. All right. So that's what I was thinking about today because I'm thinking about only happy football memories I have are old Titans teams and not the new one. But you think about that '99 season, and we 36-35 against the Bengals week 1. They go on not to lose at Adelphia Coliseum. Had they lost that game, I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl. I bet the season feels completely different. And then it brings me to this Titans season and go, we were up both those games in the first 2 weeks. I wonder how bad this team really is, dude. That's all. Like, momentum's everything. You saw it with the Predators last year. I think that was a phony team who got on a hot run. But I just got a feeling, man, like once you have a quarterback choke the life out of your team the way Levis did to us, like I don't think our roster's as far. Maybe our roster's not as far as we think it is. That's all. What are the chances that's the case? I guess that's my question. Like, is there any chance we're not as depleted as it feels like right now? We just don't know how to win football games.
All right, we'll address that. Thank you, Adam. And also, we will get to this trade. I still need to check on the veracity of this possibility. A QB trade in the AFC. We come back, wrap it up on Robby Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final segment, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106 of the game. Paul Karski. Look what you've done, Paul. So you've got things riled up
into the music.
Look what you've done. You've got things riled up. So now we got the
Dance,
one of my favorite topics, which is people like on YouTube here, like, I don't want a musician, I want a full-time athlete. Thank you. See, I mean that's what I should be making music is really what the takeaway is. Yeah, I mean, we were just making fun of the song, man. Like
terrible.
Like, it's like, but this means nothing to me in terms of him as a quarterback. Like these guys again, like Will Levis was bad last year. It had nothing to do with the fact that he spent a day doing a Mayo commercial, which actually I thought was pretty funny. Like they have free time. You can do things with your free time.
Yes. The one thing it tells you is like what a guy chooses to do with his free time. So it's not Will Levis's fault that the Mayo company is dumb enough to go into a campaign with the guy who's busting.
I hope they sold some Mayo quarterback.
Right.
You know,
so it says nothing. Shedeur Sanders could do whatever he wants in his free time. Now, does it tell you maybe a little bit about Shedeur Sanders that he thinks he's any good at music and might be delusional about that? Maybe that tells you a little something, but I don't care what this idea that a guy has to be football 24/7 is actually unhealthy. If a guy's football 24/7, it's a little unhealthy. He needs to do something away from football. Yeah. Every guy does.
Yes. Like, some of them just watch TV. No one gets mad about that.
Yeah, most of them watch TV and play video games.
Right. So the trade, and this is, okay, so this is.
Did we get any further?
Well, I mean, look, there are people. So Andrew Filipponi, who definitely is a big Pittsburgh media guy, calls him the very plugged in Ryan Burr is the one reporting this. Ryan Burr is Big Ten Network. Looks like he works for the Big Ten Network, a broadcaster, but apparently he says he got this straight from the Jags organization. So I'm taking this as not just some rando, anonymous account like the one that was screaming at us earlier about politics. This looks to be legit to some extent, and it is Trevor Lawrence potentially to the Steelers for their first and second this year. Your first thought when I throw that trade idea at you?
I don't think it's a bad idea for the Pittsburgh Steelers if Arthur Smith likes Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's certainly better than what they've had, and the Steelers need to do something to get over the hump. They've got they're 27th or something like that in dollars invested in offense. They're a completely defensive football team. And they can't get over the hump. They can get in the playoffs, but they can't win games. Now, is Trevor Lawrence automatically winning you playoff games? No. But does he give you a hell of a better chance than the path that they've been on since Ben Roethlisberger? Yeah. And there aren't a lot of great alternatives out there. Those Pittsburgh picks are not high. I don't know if I have Tankathon open here.
Well, 21. They're definitely 21 in the first.
21 in the
right
first.
Right in that range, I assume, in the second. But
yeah. I mean, now what does Jacksonville do? Jacksonville's got Mac Jones. I don't know if he's under contract or not, but he played some decent football for him. He beat the Tennessee Titans, if I'm correct.
Still, he likes him. Still, he's a big fan. Not
that that's any challenge, but they would be looking for a quarterback. Do they like somebody in the draft? Is Liam Cohen? Now you open up the door.
Does John Robinson come up to the top of the draft and trade with the Tennessee Titans? Oh, my goodness.
Well, the other thing people are going to ask is, does Liam Cohen think that Will Levis could play for him in the NFL?
A Mac Jones, Will Levis quarterback room.
So
think of all the exciting possibilities.
But it's a very interesting there's going to be a very interesting day in Pittsburgh and in Jacksonville of sports talk radio.
Yeah, and we may have some fun with that tomorrow.
But keep in mind that the GM is not in place in Jacksonville right now. So you're making this trade or introducing this idea to Tony Boselli, who's still interviewing GM candidates. So it's a ways away.
Yeah.
Guy's got to come in. Guy's got to assess Trevor Lawrence and his roster. Guy's got to assess Mac Jones. And guy's got to assess the draft possibilities.
And why is someone in the Jacksonville organization telling this guy this and saying it's okay to put it out there before they have a GM?
Well, you don't know if he's telling them it's okay to put it out there.
Well, I guess that's true.
It might be the Steelers.
And I apologize. Well, but again, according to this guy, he said it's straight from Jacksonville. He said I'm getting this from Jacksonville. So I don't know.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Adam in Portland. I'm sorry, Adam. I said I'll answer after the break. My short answer to you is I think that this roster stinks. Okay. I mean, I do think that there's something to Levis, his performance, making it look worse at times. I think, but I wouldn't get too optimistic. It's pretty bad.
I
Needs a lot of work.
I think it's pretty bad, but I think it's a little better than we think. These guys that they brought in, Cushenberry, Diggs, those are better. You know, they lost them halfway through. Now Diggs is probably not back, but the loss of Cushenberry was bad.
Sure.
I think that Chicago game really sent them into a spiral. And early Levis being bad really sent them in a spiral. And yes, they could not figure out how to win. And there are players on that roster who are capable of winning. There are players on that roster who came from places where they won before. The way things didn't gel, they couldn't have foreseen. I mean, it went as badly as humanly possible.
Yeah. I think there's something. I mean, I think like the defensive side of the ball, you know, there's it's not hopeless. There are some guys there, but it needs a lot of work. I mean, I hear what you're saying. The way it started, not just the way they blew that game, but then you have that turnover the next week, and it's like, what is happening with this guy? And even Callahan is early in the season losing his bleep when he's not a guy who's going to do that much.
Or take this scenario: they start a little better, all right. And so they don't bail and they keep Ernest Jones, right? Well, Ernest Jones brings you some of the leadership that I'm constantly complaining about, and he's just a better player.
Yeah.
And then you're better at inside linebacker, and what kind of trickle effect does that have on everything, right? I think that could have been a significant thing for this team. And I'm not saying it turns into a good football team, but it's a better football team with Ernest Jones in the locker room and on the field. But they did a good job turning that around into something of value.
Not as moribund, word of the day, as we may think. All right, tomorrow we'll have Stilly, TD. We will look at this Lawrence-Pittsburgh thing. We'll have much more to talk about. Robby and Rexrode, Chasing Big Joe next, 102.5.
Don't block the box, lock your locks.